Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today. Today, we are hosting a webinar on our application PXI-Core, which is an interface possibility to connect a Presidio system and a Presensa system. So the use case for this would be you already have an existing Presidio system and you want to extend into the future and start installing Presensa equipment next to that. So, short introduction about myself. My name is Maarten Wings. I'm working for Bosch as a marketing manager EMEA, responsible for the public address and voice alarm portfolio. And today I have with me my colleague Anton Thiele, who is a well-experienced application engineer in the domain of public address and voice alarm. So what are the objectives of the webinar today? We would like to provide you insights how to set up intelligent control in the PXI-Core interface app. So intelligent control, that's the application actually that is connecting both of the systems, and the PXI-Core is actually the hardware device which is running such. So topics today, the PXI-Core Edge Control, which is the hardware 2.0 introduction. Yeah, how to create interoperability between a Presidio system and the Presensa system using this intelligent control application. And we will show you a short system setup and live demo on how this application would look like in reality. Yeah, so as you see here, this is actually this hardware device that I was talking about. It's the PXI-Core Edge controller, and it is running an application called Intelligent Control 2.0. So this is a small embedded PC, which can be mounted together with the public address voice alarm system. And yeah, it can be used for interfacing both of those systems. Also, this is now a launch of a hardware platform that is actually able to run more applications in the future, a bit like a smartphone, different applications with different means. And the idea behind this to make public address and voice alarm systems connectable into an Internet of Things environment. Yeah, as you see on the next slide, these are the this is how the application is being set up. So what is required? First, you need to have the PXI-Core Edge controller, which is the hardware device. You can buy that from Bosch, and then you need to purchase the license to activate the software, which allows you to have a smart integration between a Presidio system and the Presensa system. Yeah, as you see on the next slide, this is basically what it is. So we have a Presidio system and a Presensa system. We have the PXI-Core hardware, and on the hardware, the application is running. There is a web interface which allows you to configure the logic of the interface, which is sitting between the two systems. And this is what we call the intelligent control. So as you see on the next slide, here are some of the use cases that we can cover. So one use case is make a business call from a Presensa system into a Presidio zone or a zone group, or on a system level, or the other way around. Yeah, you can play background music from an audio source which is connected to a Presidio system in a zone group, or on a system of the Presensa system, or the other way around. And there is also a supervision between both of the systems. So if there is a fault appearing on the Presidio system, that is actually reported towards the Presensa system. And this is how we create interoperability between Presensa and Presidio. So a bit more details on the hardware device itself. So this is a highly durable industrial PC, so it means it has no moving parts, so it can really run 24/7 without any issues. Yeah, it's a compact, powerful integration platform. It's based on a Linux OS, has a multi-core CPU performance, and also has features in place to foster cybersecurity. One note or disclaimer: this device is not on our EN54 certificate. So with that, it will not be an EN54 certified application. It is something which can be perfectly used for business purposes, though. As you see on the next slide, these are some of the licenses that come with the PXI-Core hardware device. So the first one is you need to have a base license. This enables you actually to put additional apps and install them on the PXI-Core Edge device. And after that, you need to have licenses per connected system. So for each of the connected PRAESIDEO systems, you need a PRAESIDEO license, and for each of the connected PRAESIDEO systems, you need to have a PRAESIDEO license. And the hardware device is capable of running 5 of those licenses each. So 5 PRAESIDEO systems and 5 PRAESIDEO systems on one PXI-Core Edge controller. Yeah. If you go to the next slide, we see here some of the solution boundaries. So as I already mentioned, per PXI-Core Edge controller, maximum of 5 PRAESIDEO system, 5 PRAESIDEO systems. The number of logical events that you can create is 250. The maximum number of actions that you can create is also 250. Well, what actually events and actions mean, this is something which you will definitely learn from Anton in the coming minutes. Yeah. So yeah, as you see here on the next slide, I would like to hand over to Anton, who will bring you a bit more up to speed on the details of this solution. Anton, can you please take over?
Okay. Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah. Thanks, Martin, for the introduction already. I hope my sound is clear.
Yes,
I heard
Anton,
some
I can hear
delay,
you clearly.
sometimes struggling, but okay. What you can see here is the PRAESENSA and PRAESIDEO setup with in between this PXI-Core, this mini device. What you can see is that the PRAESIDEO network is the control network, at least, is separated from the PRAESENSA network, more or less. So what you can see is that on one side you have then the NCO, the network controller of PRAESIDEO, connected to the upper port of this device. The PRAESENSA network is then connected to the third port. The second port is not used. Third port, and besides that, there is also then a connection for the audio over IP from the PRAESENSA network to the PRS4 OMI4, which is a Dante interface of PRAESIDEO, the Omnio interface. So that's more or less also part of the PRAESENSA network in that case. So you have two networks here. One is the PRAESIDEO, one is the PRAESENSA, and that can both then be can communicate then through the PXI-Core. Yeah, so it can also in this case act as a network bridge and do the web-based config, which I show you later. And yeah, this is the hardware which is needed for that. So PRAESIDEO and PRAESENSA are two different Bosch product lines, where the PRAESENSA is the latest one and the next generation PA systems. And the PRAESIDEO has a closed optical network, the Modbus, for many of you know, and a dedicated protocol to connect to PRAESIDEO devices to the network controller. So it's an other concept. So the PRAESENSA system is using standard IP technology to connect the devices to the system controller. And so these networks cannot directly be connected to each other. So you could not directly connect an amplifier of PRAESIDEO directly to PRAESENSA. That's not possible. But both systems can use Dante for the audio transport, which I already mentioned earlier. And that's the way now how you interface with each other through that Dante network, and the communication then through this PXI-Core. So the control connections is then used via open interface. Both PRAESIDEO and PRAESENSA have this control interface. The access of the open interface of the PRAESIDEO system is via the Ethernet connection on the NCO. And the access to the open interface of the PRAESENSA system is via the Ethernet network of the PRAESENSA system. So that could be anywhere of the PRAESENSA network, because it's one and the same network here. Yeah, at the PRAESENSA side. Although both systems have this open interface, these open interfaces cannot directly communicate with each other. So this means that both systems cannot control each other directly. There is also no data exchange between the systems like occupied zones or fault status info, etc. So and for the Dante, it's the fact that Presidio has this PRS4 OMI4, which can then have 4 channels in and 4 channels out, and has then a dedicated network interface for this audio transport. But increasing the number of OMIs, it will also increase the number of Dante channels at this site. You could also, for example, use, if you do not have this OMI4 of Presidio, you could have a third-party Dante device like an Avio, or there are many on the AudioNate website. You see a lot of standard Dante transceivers, which you could use to convert analog Presidio audio into Dante or vice versa. So it's not limited to this OMI4. You could also use a third-party device there. But of course, that third-party device is then not monitored by Presidio in that case. Yeah. PRAESIDEO system controller, can transmit up to 8 channels out and receive up to 112 channels. So if you might need more channels, then it might be useful to think about another solution also to add maybe multiple controllers together, but we can discuss that later if there's any question on that. But but for a basic system controller, it's 8 channels out and 112 channels in. When the Dante channels between Presidio OMI4 and PRAESIDEO are connected, audio transfer between the two systems is possible. Yeah, but this is really separated. So you have, on one side, you have this audio connections. On the other side, you have your control. So here another example, this is a picture here. So you see this OMI4 again, and you have this NCO connected to the upper part, and the OMI4 and the system controller of PRAESIDEO and the rest of PRAESIDEO to the other network. Yeah, the problem now is that Presidio becomes end of life. So sites with Presidio installed sometimes need extensions, and replacing all the PRAESIDEO would be expensive and results in a new tender process, maybe allowing other competition, etc. You could think about a lot of reasons. So the proposed solution in that case is to add a PRAESIDEO system to the existing Presidio installation. And that's where that would be one of the use cases of using this PXI-Core. Yeah. Another option is here with using this Avio or any other analog to Dante converter. You add a PRAESIDEO system to a Presidio installation, analog input via this converter, and use the PXI-Core with an intelligent control to allow the integrated operation. So that's then another way of getting the audio across from the Presidio to PRAESIDEO. Yeah, when looking at the supported features of the PXI control app is to make a call from PRAESIDEO to Presidio or vice versa. And that can be a live speech or recorded message. You could have an equal priority as the original call. So if you make a call in PRAESIDEO with priority 100, you could also then transfer that call into Presidio with the same priority. Yeah, so it will follow the priority which you originate from the from your source. Generate errors. So that means if there is an error in Presidio or in PRAESIDEO, it can be transferred to the other system. That you always know if there is an error there. So the open interface connection between both systems is supervised, and there is an option to synchronize the time of the Presidio system to the PXI-Core. The PRAESIDEO has an option to directly synchronize to an NTP server, to a time server. Presidio does not have this. That always needs to have some other system in between to synchronize the time. Well, the PXI-Core can also do this. So you can then also have the Presidio system fully synchronized with the PRAESIDEO if both are connected So the PXI-Core and PRAESIDEO are connected to the same time server, of course. So it's NTP controlled, and then it will be equal to PRAESIDEO if also NTP enabled. So the system integrator does not need to use scripting or programming to set up this connection. I will show you that later, how this works. So all config goes through the graphical user interface via web. Yeah, limitations. When making a call, when starting a call in the other system, that has some delay because at the moment that the PXI-Core detects that there is a call started, then also after that the call will be initiated in the other system. So that you must calculate some time for this. And we have here a worst case of half second. And so what we recommend is then to also adapt slightly your audio files in that case, to not directly play them in the other system, but to wait a short moment until to play the chime, so that all channels are set up before the chime is played, that you not only hear the dong instead of the ding dong. Like I told you that way. So it requires a Dante channel per zone. That's another aspect. So that might get complicated when all zones need to work individually. So you need to carefully plan what type of zones you need to transfer from the original system to the new PRAESIDEO system, for example, or vice versa. Yeah. So it can become quite complex here. What I try to say here is, if you, for example, have 3 zones and you all want to need them to work individually. So you can make a call to the first zone, you want to make a call to zone 1 and zone 2, you want to make a call to all 3 zones or to the second and the third zone. And then you need to have a lot of logic around it to establish this. Yeah, so the configuration gets complicated when all these zones need to work individually. There is also no feedback when the following system rejects the call due to a higher priority. So that's something which also should be taken into account. And it's not possible to use virtual contacts as output. That's not supported in the open interface. So that are some constraints. The certification might become more difficult since the PXI-Core is not designed for this. So you must carefully so for evac related calls, I strongly recommend then to use just contacts which are supervised directly between the 2 systems. So the solution is effectively equal to using input-output contacts. But it's more scalable and easier to configure and maintain. That's a little bit the use case of this PXI-Core. So it's not the large solution which fixes everything. You must carefully, you must carefully think about what problem do I need to solve. And so the advantage is, however, it's low cost. It is one small hardware device. It's licensed per connected subsystem, and it's fully bidirectional. And it also can link PRAESIDEO to PRAESENSA or PRAESIDEO to PRAESIDEO. So it's not limited to only a connection between PRAESIDEO and PRAESENSA. So you can do all different flavors there. So either PRAESENSA or PRAESIDEO can be the leader system, and it can handle multiple PRAESENSA PRAESIDEO systems. You can, in case you have already many of these systems, it might require multiple of these PXI-cores if the load gets too high. So it's already mentioned before, Martin indicated it, we now say 5 PRAESENSA and 5 PRAESIDEO systems. And so if you need more, then you can just add additional of these devices to handle other controllers. For complex triggers, a Node-RED is available. So this requires programmer skills, but because the application is built on Node-RED, you can also add more complex intelligence to it if needed. But yes, that does require programmer skills. So yeah, some use cases. Yeah, Marta already mentioned it. As the system operator, I can make a business call from PRAESIDEO to PRAESIDEO on one zone group or system level, or at the entire system, or the other way around, from PRAESIDEO to PRAESENSA, I will make a call. Or as a business owner, I can play BGM from an audio source connected to a PRAESIDEO system on a zone, and that's then initiated from the PRAESENSA system. Yeah, so that's something where or vice versa. So you can have a source at PRAESIDEO or you can have a source at PRAESENSA, and then you can do your music control there. As a business owner, I can, so these are these two directions. So one side, it is the PRAESIDEO system as a source, and the other side, the PRAESENSA system. Or as an engineer, I can interface PRAESIDEO and PRAESENSA systems based on a fully IP-based connection. Yeah, that's in some tenders also required that you need to have it fully IP-based. Well, that's here that's what you can do with this device here. As an engineer, I'm informed about faults on the PRAESIDEO system in the PRAESENSA system. That's another use case, which is also here served with this device. All right, so yeah, to make a call solution, yeah, so you need to configure a static Dante channel between PRAESENSA and PRAESIDEO. And so that means that you need to have this audio which is static, that you have this set up between the OMI4 and the PRAESENSA controller. And events which triggers on a zone busy status with a specific priority that event can trigger an action. It works with possible events and possible actions. I will show that later. So, and this event, you can then indicate in which priority a zone is activated or just that the zone is active. These type of things you can, for that you can trigger an event. So a Dante channel is part of the zone which triggers this event. So if you have like the Dante output of the OMI4, when that zone is active, then that channel is the trigger, the event. Yeah. If you're using analog output instead, yeah, then that analog output of the PRAESIDEO NCO that's zone active is your event, which then triggers the other action. Yeah, so it's a zone active on the source system, which triggers then the action in the other system. So multiple events needed to support multiple priorities. Then for every priority, you need then to create a separate event. Then you have the action that's triggered by the event. And on that, you can then select the priority at the action. So that means now the system which responds to the event and to indicate to which addressed zones this audio should go to. So it's always a two-step approach. You have first of all the event, which you define, and then the action, which then follows around that. Yeah. A live speech, select live speech as a call source and then use the Dante input, which contains the audio. That's what you would then do in that action. So that means now the audio source is not the local call station which was connected, but it's then the audio input. And then that's then the Dante input when you look at the system controller. Use a start chime in the leading system, which has this half a second of silence to avoid missing the first part. That's what I said. You need to have also on the following system, you need to give it some time to set it up the call. And when everything is set up, then you start playing your chime. Yeah. So this is all I wanted to show you on the theory side. Let's go to the web page of the PXI-Core. That's what you see here. I logged into the device here, and here you can see there are some apps loaded here. You have a Node-RED dashboard. You can install additional apps. Maybe in the future we will have more apps. In this case, here we have the intelligent control app. That's a smart integration between systems and devices. That's the one which we are talking about and which we are using currently in this PXI-Core. Yeah. So here you can see here an overview of what is all connected, the latest activities. You can have the events which are defined in it, the actions which are defined, and you see here some short activity log and the license management which were activated and not. Yeah. So when I go to the system definition, you see here that I have now two enabled controllers, an PRAESIDEO system controller, and I have an PRAESIDEO and CO. So these are the two systems which I have defined here. When I would click on it, and you can see here the system name, the IP address, etc. Yeah. So and the credentials. So that's the definition. Then the next step are the events. And what I just said is that you need to have the event, which then later on triggers the action. So first of all, I create the events. And therefore, it's important that you create a good naming, which you later on helps you to understand what you have configured, because else you get lost maybe later on in what you have all configured. So I give them here an ID and I give a name to it. And for example, I start here with the E01 trigger PRAESIDEO OMI4 zone to PRAESENSA to make a call via a particular input. So this is when I click on it, this is what I gave the name to it. There you see the system I selected is this PRAESIDEO system. When the zone is busy, then I will, and which zone it is, so it will automatically look into the configuration of the ensure which zones are there. You can see here I have a number of zones configured. I have 4 PRAESIDEO zones and I have created 2 PRAESENSA zones in this PRAESIDEO system in this case. So that are 4 Dante outputs in this case. So if this 2 PRAESENSA, so that's a Dante output, is equal to true, so I do now not do all things on priorities, but just to say if it is active, then this event becomes active. Yeah, and then E1 will trigger an action, and when I now go to the action on A action 01, then I say here this action triggers on this event, which so this E1. So you have here all your events. I selected the E1 based on that action. I will now also make a call in PRAESENSA and perform a call with live speech on a call priority of 100, and I will then activate zone 1 of PRAESENSA. So you can also see here all the different zones which are there, and in this case it's only to zone 1. If I have on the action, I take another one, the zone 2, there I created one which only activates zone 2, as you can see. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward, but it requires some administration. You must be careful with that, and that you do not get lost. Also, one I wanted to show you here is the active fault status of PRAESENSA and report it into PRAESIDEO. This means this event will sensor an alarm status. So that means if the sensor fault is equal to active, that would trigger them an event also. And that means that you then have an action again on the other side, which then creates like in the past reporting a fault. So like a user injected fault, or it at least reports here a fault into the PRAESENSA system. You can give it a name. Yeah, you can give the fault text here, like here PRAESENSA system fault or PRAESIDEO system fault, whatever it comes from. Yeah. So this is the way how the faults are transferred, the general failures. Then I have one on the music. So let me go back here to the music trigger E09. So in this case, I have a separate channel reserved for a music source. And that means I have a call station collected with the music source. and this is when I activate that music on this to Presidio 4, so that's the fourth output of PRAESIDEO, then I have an action, then I go to the action on 9, and then I will add I will activate zone 1 of Presidio with this music. Yeah, so then I will activate the music on that source to play music in Presidio. Yeah, so this is the way how the actions work. Yeah, there is something on activity log. You see here some activity log. I'll come back to that later when I do the demo. Here I have the license management. So that means you can also connect other things to it. I'm not focusing now on that, like cameras or access control panels. But we have here the PRAESIDEO with a license and the Presidio with a license. Yeah, so that is the that are the most important thing now of the Intelligent Control app. Then some general settings, which I show you here, that is then more system-wide again, where you can have your users, you can confine connectivity, you can have your date and time set. Yeah, so you have some schedulers in it. So there are some options here for to add here and to maintain. For example, then the connectivity, you have now the 2 Ethernet ports, one connected to the Presidio system, and that's defined here with this is the Presidio system network, and here I have now one of the PRAESIDEO network. Yeah, so this is the it's now fixed, but it can also be the HCP, so it's up to you. Yeah, let's now go to the setup which I have. That's here, this one. So I have here my call station, my Presidio call station. I have my PRAESENSA call station. You see here at the lower side, you see the Presidio system. And on the upper side, you see the PRAESENSA system with the system controller, the amplifier, and the MPS. So what I now going to do is I make a call to the PRAESENSA. I have here a PRAESENSA zone 1, so I will just select the zone here. When I now make a call, then also at the so it's now active. You can see here the zone is active. Here you can also see here now the output is going. So the Dante out is here. What you also see is at the input of the amplifier. You can see here now also the LED is blinking, and that's exactly the audio which is now being played to the first zone in PRAESIDEO. Yeah, so you can see here, you can trace the audio path now like this. Yeah, so I stop the call again. When I make a call to zone 1 and zone 2, now I have both active. You can also now see here in PRAESIDEO both zones are active, and you can see here also these output zones here are active now. Yeah, yeah, you can. In this case, you are the most flexible for the 3 zones, but it also occupies 3 outputs. And what you also could do is, if you have multiple of these call stations that you have, which have different priorities, which never can make a call at the same time into PRAESIDEO, you could also trigger on priorities. So that means that you have one call station on priority 100, one on 101, for example, and then you can use both the same audio outputs, as long as it, because then they can still overrule also the receiving call, and they can use the same audio output. So you are, with this priority handling, you're really flexible also in how you, and more efficient in using your audio outputs only to the zones which are really used. Yeah. Yeah. Let me continue then with the music. I have a music source connected. Let me have a look here. So Now I'm going to select. What I'm now doing is, if you now look here, I have now activated the music source on PRAESIDEO. I connected that here to the mini jack input of PRAESIDEO. I have the music being played at PRAESIDEO. As you can see here at the input here, it's input channel 4 in this case, where I assigned, where I routed the audio to. So it's audio output on the PRAESIDEO system, and it's getting into the input OMI 4 input. Yeah. And I can also, in this case, decrease the volume, and then in that case also the audio volume of the source here at the of the BGM source at the PRAESIDEO side is reduced. Yeah, so you can, even though the Dante is still in its full dynamic range, you can then, because that is not reduced, it's only then at the amplifier side where you have your reduction at PRAESIDEO. So you can, in that case, you can see here also now, I hope you can see it. You can see that the music channel is active if I press on it. Yeah. If I stop the call here, or to stop the music. Yeah, so now also when I would here again select this, you can see it's not blinking anymore and the music is stopped. Yeah, so you can also see here there's no music played anymore. Yeah, so this is how this looks like. When you look now at the intelligent control activity log, you can see also here I was playing a little bit with the music control. You can see that it was -15, -12, -9. And I stopped the music. You can see here all the music management which I did. Yeah, and also when I would make that call again, or let me do that. I will go here, and when I make a call, now you can see here the central trigger immediately updating here that there is a call played. Do you have here a zone? That's the central trigger in this moment, and you have here the action. Yeah. So and then it stops again. Yeah, so you can see here some actions directly following on what I'm doing here. So you can, you can completely follow then the activity on the system, and you can also export these activities for your own reference. Yeah. Yeah. The last thing I want to show you is the clock synchronization that was done here. So you have here an NCO clock sync event. I have here, there's a sensor type called time, and I now have this on a particular moment every day at this time, 1710, the clock synchronization takes place. But you can also use an OR function, so you can have multiple times a day to do this clock sync, or you could even say every hour, whatever. But that's something which you can do on an event again. But the event then needs to trigger an action. In this case, the action is to do the clock sync. So that's a standard action, synchronize time and date and time in PRAESIDEO. So you can do that to always be sure that the time is synchronized. Yeah. Yeah, a last thing I think which I did not do is the to report a fault. So I now just disconnect the call station, and let's see, that needs some time to detect. But show you here, I just disconnected the call station. What you now see is that in Presidio you get a fault message, you see? So that's because of the fact that I just disconnected the call station. That's now out. So that's not doing. I just disconnected it. So that's reported here, and you can also see that now in the activity log. You can see here an alarm state. So that's reported a fault, and in PRAESIDEO, and that's then transferred to Presidio. Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's a general failure which is then transferred. At least you can look in the local logs of the systems to know what exactly is going on there. So that's also the option here, to at least know what the failure is. Okay, this was what I was about to show you. I think now it's time for some interaction. So I hope if you have some questions, please raise them.
Yeah, thank you, Anton, for the presentation and the demonstration. Yeah, there are indeed some questions already in the chat. Let me go through them. So first, greetings from Finland. Okay, greetings back and to the rest of you as well. Then there is a question: what's the difference between Presidio and Praesensa? So yeah, let me briefly try to explain it. So Presidio is the system which we actually had on duty for the last 20 years. And we have announced this product end of life. And we are switching to the next generation of public address voice alarm systems from Bosch, which is called Praesensa. I think the main difference between the systems is that Praesensa is a system which is fully IP. It is also a system which has much less power consumption than the Presidio system had. Also saving a lot of rack space, as the units are only half as high as the Presidio units were. Yeah, as mentioned, it's fully IP, also encrypted IP. It has smart power distribution, so there are a lot of benefits and features that the Praesensa system has over the Presidio system, as it's also the next generation. To really go into the details, there are other webinars also on the Praesensa system itself, and of course there is also a lot of information on the webpage. Okay, then a question: does the integration work with CobraNet based Presidio, or can it only work with Omnio?
Yeah, CobraNet is not working together with PRAESIDEO. So that's something which for PRAESIDEO we always need to have Dante to insert, and CobraNet and Dante networks cannot be on the same network. So that's then you need to have then a converter from CobraNet to Dante in that case. So or analog, but analog to Dante. But it always needs to be Dante at the PRAESIDEO site.
Okay. If the Presidio does not have 4OMI4, is it then not possible to integrate them?
It's possible. In that case, you can use an analog to Dante converter, and that can be any third-party device. And in the future, we will also have our own device which can convert analog to Omnio. But yes, so you can have any third party to. I mentioned this Dante Avio, but you have more. Maybe have a look at the Ordinate website. There are a lot of these converters in the market.
Okay, thank you, Anton. Then, is Omnio proprietary Bosch protocol, or is it also using Dante?
Omnio is not a proprietary protocol, but we are mentioning Omnio as the combination between our control within Praesensa and in Dante in this case. So we are using the combination of standard Dante and a control protocol, and we encrypt the Dante. So that's an add-on within Omnio, which we use to fully protect all our communication within the PRAESIDEO network, as it is an open network solution. It's we have this security added to the system, but you have the option for 8 standard Dante outputs from PRAESIDEO to another system, or you can have the 112 standard Dante audio channels in. So you can have a lot of channels in, and you can have 8 channels out of the of one PRAESIDEO subsystem, and that's standard Dante.
Okay. Then the question is Bosch looking at extending the manufacturing of the 4-ohmy 4? Yes, we are. We are not putting that device end of life because we need it for the migration path, indeed. Yeah. Will there be a solution to integrate more than 8 Dante outputs in PRAESENSA?
That's something which is under discussion. There may be some options with other hardware to have this option. Yes, another approach could still to look into our multi-controller solution. There we also have the option in that case to have to create a multiple PRAESIDEO system with one master, and then you also can extend your audio channels with that solution. But that's already now available. But yeah, if you have this need, then I think it's best to get in touch with your Bosch contact and or through us, and then we can see what solutions we will have. But yes, they are certainly also looking at other solutions. One I have already mentioned is this the analog to Omnio interface. So that would mean that we have an option to in the future to have an additional modules, I/O modules, which you can with that you can also expand your system. But there are more.
Okay, thank you. If a call is live speech, will the audio be synchronized once the call is initialized?
Yes, yeah. So the call is synchronized because it's through Dante, and that is fully synchronized with each other. That means that if you have a call at PRAESIDEO, that will be then synchronized with the call in PRAESENSA.
Okay. How about calls delivered at some time to PRAESENSA from PRAESIDEO? I think this is also a question about synchronization.
Yeah, so yeah, it's the same way around. If you the only thing where you need to take care of is the chime, what as I said, because there you need to have time for if you initiate it from PRAESENSA or to PRAESENSA from if you from PRAESIDEO. If you say from PRAESIDEO, then you need to have also a chime in PRAESIDEO, which has this half a second delay to play, so it gives time to set up the call, also the subcall in the other system, and then you can play the chime. And but furthermore, the audio is synchronized between them.
Okay. What is the significance of not having EN54 certification on the PXI-Core?
That's the fact. If you want to use this as an for evacuation, so if you have 2 systems and you have your fire alarm inputs, for example, at the PRAESIDEO side, and you want now to transfer these signals also to PRAESENSA, then it's not allowed to use, if you have an EN54 system, that's not allowed to use this PXI-Core. So then you just must use contacts to connect between PRAESIDEO and PRAESENSA.
Yeah, and it's not on our certificate, so with that it's not part of the EN54 certified environment. Even though the communication between both of the systems is supervised, so if connection is lost, this will be notified in the system. On the other hand, the power supply which is going to the PXI-Core is something which is not supervised by the system. So if you want to have there an agreement with your local fire department or whomever needs to sign this off, This is something which you can bring forward if you have your own solution there and they accept it as being just as good as the EN54. But if you come from the certificate perspective, it is not officially listed on the certificate. Okay, so half a second delay is a problem if we use Presensa as a replacement of a faulty Presidio unit, all installed in the same rack and the zones mixing between the systems.
Yeah, maybe I must clarify this a little bit, because the delay is only for the chime. So it's only at the moment that you say, please wait for starting to talk or making your or playing the chime before all the systems are set up with the call. After the call is set up, the audio is fully synchronized. So then there is no delay of 1.5 seconds. It's then fully synchronized, and so you do not notice that there is any delay. So it's only for the moment at the start of the call.
Yeah. Anton, would it be a workaround to delay the chime tone itself once the call is started? If you delay that by half a second, then everything is synchronized, including the chime tone?
Yeah, but that's exactly, yeah, maybe I must clarify this somehow better, but that's exactly what I meant. So
That's
it's
what
the
you mean.
fact that we are going to delay the chime for half a second. So
Yeah.
we wait um, until the chime, so the chime, we have an half a second silence, then the chime starts. I also implemented it
Yes.
here. I think no one hardly noticed it, but so we wait half a second, and then we start playing the chime, and then immediately the call continues. So
Yes.
it's only that you have a half a second response time, I would say, then maximum worst case.
Yeah.
But in most of the cases, it's even 0.2 is sufficient. And but yes, that's something which you need to take into account.
Okay, thank you, Anton. I think it's clear now. So if we interface Presensa and Presidio using the PXI-Core, we only need to purchase the Presensa controller, or do we still need other systems like the amplifier, the power supply, etc.?
The Presensa controller, yeah, there is, yeah, actually what you only have the Presensa controller for the interfacing to Presensa. Yes, you do not need to have any, because the Presensa system controller includes the Dante interfacing. It's not like in Presidio where you need to have a separate device for your Dante input outputs. That's in Presidio, in Presensa already integrated. So that means that indeed you only need to have your Presensa system controller at the Presensa side for this integration. And for the rest, of course, you need to have your amplifiers and power supplies, etc., to have a working Presensa system. But for the integration, you only need to have the system controller.
Okay, thank you. Is this solution possible with all the hardware controller versions of Presidio?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's not the case. So it's only NCO3 what can do this. So only the latest generation NCOs. So not with the NCOB
Yeah,
or
so
previous versions. So it's only the NCO3, which also only supports the Dante OBI, but it's also, even if you do not use Dante and you have your NCOB, that's unfortunately not possible. If there is a high request, a high demand for it, our development can add also the support of NCOB, but the retrofit now is not going further than the NCO3.
okay. What happens if you make a call from Presidio to Presensa and that zone is already busy?
Yeah, that's something which is not, that's also what I mentioned in the list before, that is not noticed. So you will, yeah, you get in the log, you get a failure message, but you will not notify this at the, yeah, at the system itself. What you could do is to make the interface always the highest priority. That you say, if your initiator, let's say you have you make a call from do you say from Presidio to Present? So that means if you have your Presidio call set to priority 1 or not 1. And so that will always overrule also the calls at PRAESIDEO side. Yeah, then at least the PRAESIDEO side get notified that a call is overruled by a high priority from the procedure system. The other way around, you will not notify it. Yeah? So that's something which you need to take into account.
Okay, thank you, Anton. Then, if there is a standalone connection between PRAESIDEO and PRAESENSA using the PXI-Core, must you then buy the licenses? Yes, you should. So if you want to connect one PRAESIDEO system with one PRAESENSA system, you must have the PXI-Core hardware, you must have the base license, and you need to have one PRAESIDEO license and one PRAESENSA license.
That's correct. Yeah, I have a little bit. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
just 2 licenses you need for the one procedure and one PRAESIDEO.
Yeah, but you also need the base to have it all running.
Yeah.
Okay. Then PXI-Core availability. So if you have a project where you require the PXI-Core, we have the product release pending on the last details, but if there is an urgent project, you can already contact us. It can be ordered under concession, so it's basically available. Then, if a Presidio NCO is broken, I cannot work with the PXI-Core and the PRAESIDEO system controller, I think. Correct question?
I don't know. Well, these are 3 independent things. So if the NCO is broken, yeah, the PXI-Core cannot take over the control of the NCO. So it's not like a backup controller or something. No, it's it needs the NCO to do the local calls. The PXI-Core is only sending the call commands to the NCO. So it cannot be a replacement for an NCO indeed.
Okay. If we are working using an old NCO like the NCOB or the LBB 5401, okay, what to do then, I guess?
Yeah, I guess then it remains to audio and context or create your own dedicated interface. So you can still, of course, because open interface is also already supported on NCOB, but yeah, then it needs to be your own application to create such interfacing, and that requires programming. And but then the easiest way is to use contacts.
Okay. In the earlier slides, you explained one Dante channel per zone. Can you elaborate what does that mean?
Yeah, one per zone. I mean, in this case, so we have 8 channels. So that means if you want to have 8 different zones individually, or zone groups. I said zones, but I mean in this case also zone groups or areas which you want to address in the receiving system. Yeah, then you have your maximum of 8 different parallel zones in that case. And if you have more, then you need to work with priorities. And then you can say only, yeah, if you have more zones, then you only the most important 8 will get the highest priority, and then the lower important get a lower priority, etc. So, but we can only have 8 parallel calls then from the source to the destination. Case.
Okay. Do you have an application note if Presidio and PRAESENSA systems are in different networks and we would like to use a ARNI unit together with the PXI-Core for connection?
Yeah, I do not have it in combination with the ARNI unit, but yes, we can, of course, there's first of all already an application note available. It's good that this question came up because it's important to know that we have a detailed application note explaining the things I today demonstrated in more detail. So you can really, it's I think a 15-page document where you can really scroll through and see how to step-by-step configure your PXI-Core. So that's the first thing. If you now say I want to connect that by using ARNIs together, yeah, that's multi-subnet is a separate topic. But we can, yeah, there's not a dedicated application note for it, but I have an application inscription on multi-subnet, and that in combination with this PXI-Core, you can establish this, because the ARNI, and to the ARNI you can also subscribe the OMI interface, so the OMI could then also be part of and subscribe to the ARNI device in that case. So that's something which is we can discuss that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then comes the next question. Can the PXI-Core connection to Presensa and Presidio bridge multiple VLANs?
Yeah. Yes, in theory, yes. You can do something like, because the Omnia interface on Presidio is a kind of bridge, because it's connecting on one side to the MOS bus, and if you have two OMIs connected in a Presidio network, they can be both of the total different network. So, and then you can use the NCO to bridge them. So yes, that option is there, but yeah. So yeah, I think it's better to understand the exact use case, because also analog audio to Dante is a bridge more or less. So it's I really need to know in that case the network and how and which need there is. Yeah.
Okay, then if Dante is used, Dante sound over the router could be possible to connect. And additionally, if we need more contacts as output, how can we integrate both systems?
First of all, standard Dante does not go over a router, but there are options here. We have it was already discussed, this ARNI, where we can which we can use in combination with Omnio to do routing. But for the interfacing, if you say I need to have this Dante audio, which is going from Presidio to Presensa over a router, yeah, then you might get into the direction of Dante Domain Manager, or using our bridge, our Omnio bridge. So there are different options here, and I think for that we really must look into the use case of that particular project. Yeah, additionally, if you need more contacts as output, how can we integrate both systems? More contacts is not a limitation, so but it's the zone out which is there which is the limit. If you say, yeah, okay, but I have only 8 Dante zones, yeah, you need to have then other output triggers which you can use for getting out. And yeah, also here I need to know more about the installation to give a proper answer. We could think about maybe having this, what I just said before, a master controller with a subsystem, and then you have again 16 outputs. So or you have another controller besides it. So also in that direction we could think of, but yeah, let's first see if you really need it, or if we can do something with priorities.
Okay. Then question about the trainings. Will the PXI-Core be part of the master training? And also if Presensa should work in different networks with the ARNI, will both be in the trainings.
Yeah, these are topics which will briefly explained in the 3 days training we have in the master training, but we will have an additional advanced training day on the master, and that's not part of the standard master program, which then will handle in more detail about PXI-Core programming and about multi-subnet and networking. So that's something which is a separate advanced day in the master program that will come.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then is it one Dante output per zone? If the Presensa system has 8 Dante outputs, do we need a Presensa system for every 8 zones?
Yeah, it's the same. So it means that you can also look here what is really needed. So if you have zone outputs on different priorities. Yes, if you have more than 8 parallel calls always, then in that case, yeah, you need to have this. If you could say I can work with priorities, and I give the 8 highest priority call stations the first 8 Dante outputs, and another I can give lower priorities, then yeah, you do not need to have more Dante outputs. So it really depends on the use case individually per system.
Okay, then question if we share the presentation. Yes, afterwards there will be an email distributed with this recording as also the slides. And then another question on the half a second delay. Will the half a second delay be a silent section on the audio file?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so it's explained in the application note. So it's just that you shift your audio file shortly to the right. So you can also do it by yourself if you have your own file, just with Audacity or any other application. Shift the file and have it silent on the first half second. And in that case, and then upload it, and that's your chime, which can be used then for the system.
Okay, then yes. How much is the cost for the Presensa system? Yeah, I think how much it costs for the Presensa system. Yeah, I think this, I don't know exactly what we of course, in the Presensa system, we have many components. I think if you want to know the exact costs for something, I would advise you to get in contact with your Bosch contact and discuss a project that you maybe have to get a better figure on this. This question is a bit broad, I think. Yeah, let's see. We're already 9 minutes over time, so there were a lot of interesting questions. Anton, thank you for the great presentation and the demonstration. Yeah, everybody who joined the call would like to thank you for your attention. I would also like to notify to you that there is also an A&E text available for the PXI-Core. So if you are specifying projects, there is a tender text available which you can use to specify in a new project what interface you would like to have in case a Presidio system needs to be extended with Presensa to make sure that you have a nice seamless Bosch solution with the PXI-Core Edge device. If there are any questions, yeah, further, please reach out to your Bosch contacts. And I would like to thank you all for your attention.
Yeah, thank you all. And maybe note also that we are at the IAC in Barcelona, where we also show this solution. So if you have time, then come visit us at the Bosch stand, and where we can show you how it works.
Yes,
Okay.
indeed. Anton, thank you very much. Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye.